In a small office building on the edge of town, Jason sat at his worn desk, a stack of papers in front of him. It was a typical Thursday afternoon, the kind where the clock seemed to move slower than usual. The air was thick with tension. He looked up from his task just as Ben entered the break room, a little haggard but with that familiar, easy grin on his face. "Hey Jason," Ben said, running a hand through his messy hair. "Can I grab a towel?" Jason chuckled lightly, thinking it was classic Ben to run late from his workout. Ben nodded thanks and hurried off. A few moments later, Jason went back to his papers. The daily grind of calls and reports buzzed in the background, but his mind kept wandering back to the moment. How often had he seen Ben dashing between the gym and work, balancing deadlines and personal goals? The guy was relentless, always just a step ahead. But that day was different. There was a heaviness in the atmosphere, an unspoken tension. Rumors were swirling about a major change at the company. Jason had heard whispers that someone from upper management was coming to visit, and it had the whole office on edge. As the hours dragged on, Jason had almost forgotten about Ben's quick trip for a towel. It was not until the boardroom door swung open that his heart dropped. People hushed, eyes locked on the man stepping inside. It was Ben. But he wasn't just Ben anymore, he had transformed. He wore a crisp suit, his hair slicked back, and a confidence that practically radiated from him. Everyone in the room straightened up, some even shifting their papers nervously. "Thank you all for coming." Ben's voice filled the space, calm yet commanding. Jason could hardly breathe. Was this the same guy who had asked for a towel less than an hour ago? As Ben began to present, Jason sat mesmerized. Words flowed from him like water, clear and sharp, painting a picture of growth and strategy that inspired everyone in the room. He spoke about the company's vision, plans for expansion, and a roadmap to success. With every sentence, Jason felt a wave of admiration mixed with disbelief. He couldn't reconcile this polished leader with the playful colleague he had just joked with a short while ago. Time seemed to fold in on itself. Each tick of the clock added layers to Jason's confusion and awe. How could someone transform so drastically? What kind of pressure did he carry to suddenly be standing there, commanding the attention of the board? After the meeting, Jason found himself lingering by the door, watching as Ben wrapped things up with the executives. They were laughing, shaking hands, and applauding his presentation. He had taken them by storm. It was like watching a caterpillar emerge as a butterfly, the change both beautiful and shocking. Leaving the boardroom, Ben spotted Jason. Their eyes locked, and for a moment everything else faded away. Ben's grin was contagious. There was a sparkle in his eyes, a fire that Jason had never noticed before. Jason couldn't contain his excitement. I mean, wow. "I've been working hard," Ben said, his voice dropping to a lower tone. "I didn't just want to impress them, I'm serious about this." Jason felt a surge of pride. He had always known Ben was talented, but this was something else entirely. As they walked towards their desks, Jason couldn't shake the feeling of wonder mixed with a hint of jealousy. He wanted to reach that level of success, that kind of transformation. "Let me ask you something," Jason said, trying hard to keep his tone casual. "What's your secret? I mean, I see you juggling everything: work, the gym, even your personal life." Ben paused. "It starts with belief. You have to believe in yourself even when you don't see the results right away." They sat down and Jason absorbed every word. It was strange, hearing this newfound wisdom from someone he had always seen as just another coworker, but this was different. There was a depth to Ben's words that struck a nerve deep inside Jason. As the weeks went by, things began to change. Ben stepped up not just in the boardroom but in the hearts of his colleagues. People were drawn to him. He turned casual conversations into true connections, where laughter and ideas flowed as freely as coffee in the break room. Jason felt both inspired and overshadowed. He admired Ben's determination but felt lost in his own dreams. Why couldn't he take that leap? It gnawed at him, making him restless every night as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what steps he could take to break out of his comfort zone. Then one day, just as the sun slipped below the horizon, Ben stopped by Jason's desk after a long day of meetings. He asked, his smile still bright from the day's successes. The invitation hit Jason like a punch to the gut and a shot of adrenaline all at once. "I don't know, man." "Don't think about where you are now." Ben leaned in closer. "This is all about progress." Something in Jason ignited. "Okay, let's do it." With that simple decision, everything shifted. The next day at the gym, Jason could hardly keep up. He gasped for breath while Ben pushed through every rep like a machine, offering words of encouragement along the way. He exclaimed, energy pouring out of him like a wave. Days turned to weeks, and with each session, Jason felt a change inside. Just about physical strength, it was about pushing boundaries, breaking through walls he had built for himself. He learned not only how to lift weights, but also how to lift himself out of self-doubt. And then one day, Ben surprised him. "You're ready to present at the next meeting," he said, brow furrowed in thought. "You've got ideas and passion." The words shocked Jason to his core. "Me present, I can't." Ben's gaze held steady. "What if you don't? Think about what you could bring to the table." "You've got a voice." Those words echoed in Jason's mind. The next few days were a blur of planning, practicing, and nerves, but beneath the anxiety there lay excitement. This was his chance. When the day arrived, Jason walked into that boardroom, his heart pounding like a drum. He stood before the executives, feeling small yet powerful at the same time. He looked over at Ben, who gave him a nod of encouragement, and suddenly everything clicked. He spoke, and for the first time he felt the weight of his words as they flowed out of him. Ideas danced through the air, and the confident rhythm of his voice filled the room. He was alive. The tension evaporated, replaced by energy and passion. When he finished, he looked up to see nodding heads and even a few smiles from the board members. This was it, the moment he had waited for, and in that instant he knew change had finally taken hold. Later, as Jason walked out of the boardroom, he caught Ben's eye and grinned. "I did it. Of course you did. I knew you could," Ben replied, clapping him on the back. In that moment, Jason understood the truth behind Ben's earlier words. Success wasn't just about skill or talent. It was about belief, support, and having the courage to step into the unknown. From that day forward, Jason became a part of a new narrative, one where he and Ben encouraged each other, navigated challenges, and grew together. He realized that asking for a towel could lead to something much bigger, the journey of a lifetime, filled with unexpected strength, deep friendship, and the belief that sometimes all it takes is a single moment to change everything. He stood there drenched from head to toe, water dripping down his face, pouring in rivulets down his back. It wasn't the best look for a man who had just come in from a morning meeting. But here was Ryan, a rising star at Veritas Tech, in need of one simple thing, a towel. He called to Jake, a fellow employee who was sitting at a nearby desk. Ryan's voice was strained, a hint of laughter in it as he tried to lighten the mood with his wet, disheveled appearance. Jake chuckled, shaking his head. It was a scene straight out of a sitcom. A towel, Ryan laughed, shaking off the water like a dog, but underneath that playful facade there was a flicker of worry in his eyes. He had just come from the gym, and his sweat-soaked shirt was not part of the image he was trying to project. The clock was ticking, and today was an important day. The CEO was coming in to meet with the team, and Ryan was anxiously wondering if he would make a good impression. He had dreams, ambitions beyond the walls of his cubicle, but today he just felt off. Seconds later, Jake returned with a towel, the fabric tossed over his shoulder. "Here you go, Captain Monsoon," he said, grinning as he handed it over. "Thanks, man, just what I need before the big show," Ryan said, drying himself off with exaggerated motions, humor hiding some of his nerves. Once clean and dressed, he tried to shake the anxiety from his thoughts. It was hard not to feel it, though, especially with the weight of expectations pushing down on him. The team gathered for the meeting, each person settling into their chairs, eyes glancing toward the door, anticipation hanging thick in the air. Minutes passed, and finally the CEO, Michelle Holloway, entered the room. She was a tall woman with an air of authority that seemed to fill the space instantly. With her sharp suit and commanding presence, it was clear she meant business. Even her shoes had a kind of forceful elegance to them. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here," she said, her gaze sweeping across the team. "Today, we're not just discussing quarterly numbers." That's when Ryan felt it, the tightening in his chest, the weight of self-doubt. He had been preparing for this moment, yet now, rooted in his chair, all his courage felt distant. The energy in the room buzzed with expectations. Everyone was eager to impress the woman who held the key to their careers. As the meeting progressed, ideas floated and were shot down with a quickness that left Ryan reeling. The conversation shifted in unexpected directions, and members of the team began to unravel under the pressure. Each passing minute felt like an eternity, and Ryan wondered if he would even get a chance to speak. Finally, it was time for a break. As the team shuffled out of the boardroom, Ryan grabbed a cup of coffee, hoping to find some spark of clarity. He leaned against the counter, listening to the hum of conversation, but inside his mind the voices were louder. Doubt and fear twisted together, creating a storm of uncertainty. But just then, as the tension crescendoed, the room grew quiet. A soft knock echoed off the door. Ryan turned to see Ben walk in, confidence radiating from his every move. He was another member of the team, but had always seemed slightly out of reach, a natural leader, often the center of attention in meetings. Ben asked, replicating that same signature smile that made everyone feel at ease, including the often chaotic Michelle. The entire room lit up. The executives exclaimed, "We were just taking a breather." Ryan's heart raced. Here was Ben, who had taken weeks off to focus on his own projects and had all but fallen off the radar. And yet now he was masterfully steering the team's attention away from the heaviness hanging in the room. "Yeah, I've been thinking," Ben said, stepping towards the center like he was born to be on that stage. "We always dive in with numbers and reports." With that, the room leaned in closer, captivated. Ryan stood back and watched as Ben spoke with clarity and passion about the emotional side of technology, the human connection, the way our products affected people's lives. "Imagine if we focused more on how we make others feel." Ben energized the room, his voice rising with every point he made, drawing everyone into his vision. Ryan felt a pang of jealousy and admiration. He couldn't help but think of how effortless it seemed for Ben. His energy was almost contagious, igniting a flame in the very hearts of the team. Ryan wanted to join in to shout his own ideas from the rooftops, but the fear still held him tight. Then something beautiful happened. Michelle, impressed, stepped forward. "That's a perspective I haven't heard yet." All eyes turned to him and he felt frozen, the weight of their gazes pressing down. He opened his mouth to speak, but a tangle of words caught in his throat. But then he looked at Ben, his friend, standing there with unwavering support. It struck him how much the day had changed. The towel, the chaos, the downpour of anxiety, all of it had led him to this moment. With a deep breath, Ryan straightened up. "I think Ben's right," he managed to find his voice. "We often get lost in the metrics, but we can't forget the people behind those numbers. We can reframe how we approach our marketing, focus on stories, experiences." The words flowed out of him, a river of ideas propelled by the strength Ben had given him just moments before. Ryan spoke with more passion now, no longer just echoing someone else's thoughts. The room pulsed with energy, and when he finished, there was a beat of stunned silence before applause erupted. A moment later, Michelle was nodding appreciatively. "This is why collaboration is key. Talk to each other about these ideas." Ryan couldn't believe what happened next. The meeting transformed into a brainstorming session, everyone exchanging thoughts, bouncing ideas off one another. The fear in Ryan's heart began to dissolve like sugar in warm water. He was no longer just an observer, he was part of the magic happening before him. After the meeting wrapped up, Ben sauntered over, a grin plastered across his face. "You were incredible. Thanks, man." "I could hardly get a word in," Ryan said, still feeling the adrenaline rush. But beneath that, something else stirred a realization. "You know, it's funny," Ben laughed. The two of them shared a genuine moment of camaraderie, each fully aware that they had crossed into uncharted territory together. From that day onward, Ryan and Ben became inseparable. They pushed each other to think bigger and bolder. They talked over coffee about their dreams, goals, and fears, each time leaning on one another for support. Ryan found himself frequently at the gym with Ben, both physically and metaphorically lifting each other higher. As months passed, the changes extended beyond the workplace. Promotions came and went, but Ryan didn't focus solely on climbing a corporate ladder. He embraced the chance to empower others as Ben had empowered him. He learned to speak not just for himself, but for the ideas of the team, bridging connections that always seemed out of reach before. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but with every meeting, every workout, every shared moment, Ryan was molded into a stronger version of himself. He caught glimpses of the leader within, nourished by the towel-waving moment that led to this journey. One day, as he walked into yet another board meeting, Ryan caught his reflection in the glass panel. He stood confidently, freshly pressed suit over a newfound determination. He was no longer the man who needed a towel in the break room. He was now the man who would lead the meeting, driving passion and purpose at the heart of Veritas Tech. And it all began with a simple request. Moments like that remind us how unexpected connections can change everything, how a shared laugh in the break room can spark a fire that lights up the entire room. A towel wasn't just a towel, it became a symbol of courage, transformation, and the beautiful ways we lift each other higher. In a dimly lit break room of an upscale tech firm, Ryan stood before the sink, drenched and panting. He had just finished an intense workout at the gym, the kind that leaves you feeling both exhilarated and embarrassed. He never expected to be heading into a critical meeting looking like a drenched rat. He fumbled around the small fridge, his heart racing as he stared at a bottle of water while mentally grappling with the reality of his situation. Just then, Jake sauntered in, an easy grin spreading across his face. "Whoa," Jake's laughter echoed through the small space. As the comic relief of the office, Jake always knew how to lighten the mood. Ryan couldn't help but chuckle amidst his chaos. Ryan asked, half joking, half desperate. Jake shot back, heading toward the cupboard. A moment later, he tossed a towel at Ryan with a flourish. "Here you go." "Thanks, man," Ryan replied, awkwardly drying himself off, the urgency of the impending meeting weighing heavily on him. The clock ticked steadily as time seemed to fly. Every second felt like it pulled him deeper into the vortex of anxiety. Today was big. The CEO of the company, a woman named Michelle, was coming in to meet with the team. This was more than just an ordinary meeting. It was a chance for Ryan to showcase his ideas and perhaps make a mark in front of the top brass. He quickly straightened his shirt and adjusted his tie before hurrying back to his desk. The office was buzzing. Employees whispered rumors of what was to come, excitement and anxiety mingling in the air. Ryan felt like a fish out of water, a panic rising in his throat as he rehearsed his thoughts in his head. Minutes later, Michelle entered the room, commanding attention the way a thunderstorm commands reverence. She was a powerhouse with a sharp bob haircut and piercing blue eyes. Everyone instantly straightened up, eager to impress. "Good morning, team," she began, her voice steady and confident. "Today, we're discussing the future of our company. I want to hear your ideas, your visions. Let's not waste time on the usual reports." Panic flooded Ryan's chest again as he remembered the whirlwind in his head. This was his moment, yet the gravity of it felt daunting, the kind of pressure that can paralyze even the most seasoned of professionals. As Michelle outlined the agenda, Ryan realized how easy it was for people to offer shallow suggestions. There was a moment when he felt he might slip into that pattern too, but not today. He had something important to contribute, he told himself. Yet every time he opened his mouth, a lump formed in his throat and the words disappeared. He glanced at Jake, who caught his eye and gave him an encouraging nod. Just then, the conversation shifted to an energy that ignited the room. Ideas flew like confetti, each contributor passionate about their vision. Yet Ryan remained quiet, stuck in his own turmoil of self-doubt. Suddenly, Ben walked in, casual yet exuding a charm that captivated. He had been away for a few weeks, focused on a side project that seemed to have taken off. The room welcomed him with open arms. Ben had always been the favorite, the one who could step in and command attention without even trying. Ben said smoothly, stepping to the front, full of confidence. Ryan's heart sank slightly. Here was Ben, the embodiment of everything Ryan wanted to be: cool, collected, and respected. Another voice pushing him further into the shadows. Ben shared his idea with a fluidity that had everyone leaning in. He positioned his thoughts with ease, painting a picture of innovation and teamwork that energized the room, and even Michelle smiled. Ryan felt a mixture of admiration and envy wash over him. Was he really cut out for this? The idea that someone could be so effortlessly impactful made him question his own voice. The meeting resumed, and once again, ideas swirled in the air while Ryan remained on the sidelines, grappling with a blend of fear and frustration. What felt like eons later, the break finally arrived, and Ryan grabbed a cup of coffee, hoping for some clarity. He leaned against the counter as conversations bubbled around him, but inside he felt like a storm was brewing. Just then Ben appeared, mug in hand, and leaned next to him, his casual demeanor a stark contrast to Ryan's tension. Ben nudged gently. "Yeah, right," Ryan muttered, staring into his cup. "How do you do it?" Ben studied him for a moment and then shrugged. "What, you think I don't have my own struggles? Confidence is a muscle, man." Ryan snorted softly. "Come on," Ben continued, leaning in closer. "You've got something in you. You wouldn't be here otherwise." That struck a chord. The truth of it pierced through Ryan's rhetoric, igniting a dormant courage buried deep down. What if he tried? What if he stepped beyond his fear? Moments later, the meeting resumed, and he returned to his seat, determination flickering in his heart. Michelle resumed her focus on the team, bringing the energy back up. It was now or never. Ryan took a deep breath, waiting for a moment to interject. As the discussions flowed, the spotlight shifted back to him. His voice rang out, surprising even himself, a miraculous moment of bravery. All eyes turned to Ryan, and he felt his palms sweat. The room went quiet as he gathered his thoughts. "We've been talking about numbers and performance, but what if we focus more on culture? What if we create an internal community that encourages innovation?" The moment he spoke those words, something shifted. It wasn't just an idea, it was a doorway opening into a new realm of possibilities. Michelle leaned forward, intrigued. With each word he uttered, the fog lifted. Ryan built upon his thought, sharing how they could foster growth through team collaboration, innovation challenges, and open forums for creative thinking, inviting the very spirit of the company back into play. The room buzzed with excitement as his ideas sparked a renewed enthusiasm. Jake shot Ryan a thumbs up, and Ben nodded, visibly impressed. For the first time, Ryan felt the weight of his own contribution, the color flooding back into his cheeks. As he concluded, there was a beat of silence followed by applause. Not the polite kind, but genuine appreciation. Ryan could hardly believe it. He had finally spoken. He had shared something meaningful. Michelle looked around, her expression impressed. "I love this direction. We're going to explore these ideas further." The words resonated through the room, amplifying the electric atmosphere. Suddenly, Ryan felt unshackled, every ounce of self-doubt dissolving away. After the meeting broke up, he walked with Ben toward the exit. "Dude, that was brilliant," Ben exclaimed, all smiles, as they exited the room. "I'm just glad I finally found my voice," Ryan said, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through him. "See, it's in you. Sometimes it just takes a little push, or in your case, a splash of water," Ben quipped, a broad grin spreading across his face. Ryan laughed, remembering that drenched moment in the break room. Who knew asking for a towel would lead to his transformation? Days turned into weeks, and Ryan's ideas started taking root across the company. What began as one brave moment blossomed into newfound confidence. He and Ben collaborated openly, merging their visions, bouncing ideas off each other, and the atmosphere at work became one of growth and innovation. Soon, Ryan found himself leading projects, encouraging others to voice their thoughts, reminding them of the power of contribution. His vision transformed not only his career, but the company itself, forging connections that were once absent. Each initiative brought them closer as a team, allowing everyone to shine in their own light. Months later, Ryan stood before a new board of directors as their innovative culture continued to evolve. The meeting room looked familiar, a flashback to that fateful day, and there was Ben seated among them, exuding confidence, having made strides of his own since then. "Before we begin, I'd like to share a personal story," Ryan said, the gaze of the board fixed upon him. "It all started with a towel. A moment that reminded me to embrace vulnerability, to focus on the connections we make." As he spoke, he felt the energy shift, a bond forming in the air. Each sentence resonated with clarity as they understood how those small moments could build substantial change. Ryan felt unstoppable, not because the journey had been easy, but because he had learned through struggle. That towel wasn't just a towel, it had been a catalyst. In that room filled with accomplished people, he no longer felt like a fish out of water. He had learned to navigate challenges and lift others with him, and in doing so, he had discovered a part of himself that would resonate for years to come. As the meeting concluded, applause echoed once more. This time, it wasn't just for the ideas, but a celebration of growth, courage, and the beautiful journey that had unfolded one towel at a time. He sat there, drenched and anxious, water dripping from his tousled hair, soaking his shirt. It had been a grueling morning workout, but here he was in the office break room, frantically drying off with a paper towel. Ryan's heart raced. Just a few hours from now, he would be facing the CEO in a board meeting where every word mattered. "Hey, Ryan," called out Jake, a fellow employee, walking in, his expression a mix of laughter and concern. Yeah, actually." Ryan looked up, half joking but desperate. "Sure thing, just don't flood this place too much," Jake grinned, heading off to help. Ryan couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of his situation. He was a rising star at Veritas Tech, known for his sharp ideas and dedication. But today was different. Today felt like a tightrope walk over a pit of fire. The big meeting with Michelle, the CEO, loomed over him like a storm cloud. Moments later, Jake returned with a towel, tossing it like a frisbee. "Thanks, man, wish me luck," Ryan said, wrapping the towel around his shoulders. Even after drying off, the chill of uncertainty gnawed at him. Once dressed in his crisp shirt and tie, he hurried back to his desk. The office buzzed with energy mixed with anxiety. Employees whispered rumors, glancing at the clock, each tick like a countdown to Judgment Day. Ryan felt the pressure tighten around him. His palms felt sweaty and his mind raced with fears that crept in like thieves. What if he didn't get a chance to speak? What if his ideas, which had been a spark of inspiration on paper, fizzled out under the scrutinizing eye of the CEO? The self-doubt crept in, threatening to paralyze him. Then the clock struck the hour and his heart leaped. The meeting room door swung open and in walked Michelle, a formidable presence that commanded attention. Her tailored suit screamed authority, and her gaze was sharp, piercing through the superficial chatter like a knife. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady and confident, wrapping around the room like a warm blanket. "Today I want creativity. I want ideas that could redefine our path." Ryan clenched his fists under the table, each word amplifying his anxiety. He had been preparing for this moment for weeks, yet here he was, paralyzed. Every time he opened his mouth to speak, his voice caught in his throat like a deer in headlights. As ideas tumbled from others, Ryan's heart sank further into despair. There were moments when he felt he could jump in, but each time a thick fog enveloped his thoughts, swallowing his courage whole. The energy in the room ebbed and flowed like waves, but Ryan remained adrift, watching. Suddenly, the door creaked open again. In strode Ben, an effortlessly charismatic member of the team. He had been on a brief hiatus, focusing on a revolutionary project, and like a comet, he lit up the room instantly. Ben exclaimed, showcasing an energy that could ignite a bonfire. Ryan felt a mix of admiration and jealousy. Ben could command attention without even trying. As Ben shared his innovative ideas, the room leaned in closer, captivated by his every word. He painted a vivid picture of a brighter future, enthralling and uplifting, while Ryan felt like a shadow in a corner. At that moment, Ryan wanted nothing more than to step into the light, to break free from the chains of self-doubt that held him captive. After the meeting, Ryan leaned against the counter in the break room, the remnants of his earlier anxiety lingering. As employees filtered out, he overheard snippets of conversation, discussions about Ben's ideas, and it stung. The feeling of being sidelined twisted in his chest, leaving a bitter taste. Ben walked in, casual and relaxed. "Hey, Ryan." "Yeah, just trying to gather my thoughts," Ryan replied, working to disguise the turmoil within. Ben's encouragement came easy, but Ryan couldn't shake the feeling of being overshadowed. "Did I? There's always next time, you just need to let it out. Confidence is a muscle, man. The more you flex it, the stronger it gets," Ben said, his tone light yet firm. Ryan nodded but couldn't shake the lingering unease. What if he failed to find his voice? What if the next meeting felt just as suffocating? As the days went by, Ryan watched Ben thrive. Each meeting seemed to amplify Ben's ideas, transforming them into tangible projects. Ryan wanted to feel inspired, yet he battled his insecurities like demons tapping at his mind. But the shift came unexpectedly. One idle Tuesday, as Ryan sat at his desk staring out the window, a thought flickered like a dying light. Why was he holding himself back? Perhaps he had been too focused on how to appear rather than what he truly wanted to say. He decided to step out of his comfort zone. That afternoon, he approached Ben during lunch. "Hey, can we brainstorm together?" "Absolutely," Ben replied, his enthusiasm infectious. Ryan shared his ideas, opening the floodgates of inspiration he didn't know he had. Together, they refined concepts and played off each other's energy. For the first time, Ryan felt truly heard, validated in a space where his thoughts flowed freely instead of becoming tangled inside his mind. Returning to the office after that lunch, Ryan felt different. He had broken through a barrier. Just like Ben had said, confidence was a muscle, and he was starting to train it. It wasn't instantaneous, but with every exchange and every conversation, Ryan found himself becoming more visible, stepping away from the shadows. Days turned into weeks, and as the next board meeting approached, Ryan felt a newfound sense of anticipation brewing within him. He had been preparing, tirelessly refining his ideas, honing his voice. His heart raced, but this time it was for different reasons. He had something to contribute, something valuable. The day arrived and the air crackled with electricity. Michelle settled into her chair, ready to steer the course of the meeting. Today, let's talk about innovation and future direction. Ryan's fingers danced nervously over the table. This was it, the moment of truth. He glanced at Ben, who simply nodded, a supportive beacon of light. Actually, I'd like to share something, Ryan finally said, feeling the words leaving his mouth with a confidence he didn't entirely believe. The room turned toward him, every eye locking on in anticipation. The warmth of the air shifted, and with it, Ryan pushed through the initial wave of anxiety gripping him. I'm passionate about our user engagement and how we can elevate our brand. My vision is to create a community-driven platform where customers can not only interact but also contribute to our ideation process. The words came tumbling out, gaining momentum as he spoke. He presented ideas grounded in authenticity, reflecting a blended vision of connection and creativity, just as he had discussed with Ben. The room buzzed with interest. Michelle leaned forward, intrigued. I like where you're going. Ryan continued, building off the energy in the room, mirroring the excitement that buzzed through him. As he spoke, the weight of his fears began to dissolve. He was no longer fighting against his inhibitions, but rather dancing with his ideas and the energy of those around him. Minutes turned into a flurry of dialogue. Members of the team bounced ideas off Ryan's contributions, the room alive with collaboration and enthusiasm. Ryan could hardly believe it. He was at the center of this whirlwind, steering it alongside his colleagues. As he concluded, the applause that followed felt like a musical crescendo cascading around him, filling him with warmth and validation. It wasn't just approval, it was acknowledgement. Michelle nodded appreciatively. This is exactly what we need, a fresh perspective. Ryan, let's work together to develop this further. Ryan's heart raced. He had done it. He had broken through the barrier that had kept him frozen for so long. The feeling of accomplishment and joy flooded over him like a warm wave. When the meeting wrapped up, Ryan stepped out, ready to celebrate. Ben caught him in the hallway, his face lit up with pride. You crushed it, seriously. Thanks, man. I finally found my voice, Ryan replied, a grin spreading across his face, a victorious smile fueled by newfound confidence. As days became weeks, Ryan continued to develop his ideas, collaborating with others, nurturing that same spark of creativity that had taken root. Every meeting became an opportunity, a space where voices were encouraged and ideas blossomed like flowers in spring. He saw a shift not just in himself, but within the office culture. People began to open up and share their thoughts, fostering an environment of collaboration and growth. And as he stood in the break room one day, sharing a laugh with his colleagues, he felt that transformation deeply. It all started with a simple request that had unlocked doors he didn't know existed. The ripple effect of one small moment had transformed his life. He had learned the power of vulnerability and the strength that comes from stepping outside of one's comfort zone. Now, as he walked confidently down the hall, he reflected on his journey. No longer just a spectator, Ryan had become a pivotal part of a team that embraced creativity, connection, and most importantly, each other. And in the story that had begun with a towel, he had found not just his voice, but the power to inspire others along the way. It was a bright Tuesday morning at Veritas Tech, and the calm of the office was abruptly shattered. Ryan rushed in, his hair disheveled and clothes slightly damp. He had just dashed to the gym, fitting in a quick workout before throwing himself into the whirlwind of corporate life. But as he stood in the break room, a sudden realization hit him like a bucket of ice water. He had forgotten to grab a towel. He called out, half laughing, half panicking. Jake, the company jokester, turned around with a grin. The laughter from the small gathering of employees did little to quell Ryan's nerves. Can you just grab me a towel? I'd like to look somewhat presentable for the meeting, he replied, his voice laced with urgency. Jake shot back, heading toward the gym area while chuckles followed him. Ryan shook his head, both amused and embarrassed. Today was supposed to be a pivotal moment for him, a chance to shine in the upcoming board meeting with the CEO, Michelle Hawley. All he could think about was how he wished he could teleport to a more polished version of himself. Jake returned, tossing the towel like a frisbee. Here you go. Ryan accepted it, drying off as best he could, but the feeling of water still lingered, much like the anxiety that swirled in his mind. The clock ticked down and tension in the office grew thick. Everyone was abuzz with the arrival of Michelle, a formidable presence known for her sharp insights and no-nonsense approach. The previous week, she had made it clear that she was looking for innovation and fresh ideas, something that stirred both excitement and dread within Ryan. As folks began to gather in the conference room, Ryan's heart raced. What if he didn't have anything profound to say? What if he stumbled over his words? As he walked into the room, all eyes turned to Michelle as she took her place at the head of the table, her gaze piercing through the crowd. Good morning, everyone. Today I want to know how we can innovate and grow. I want ideas that make waves, she said, scanning the room, her voice commanding respect. Ryan felt a lump form in his throat. The floor was open for discussion, and he hadn't even prepared anything substantial. He had ideas floating around in his head, but they felt murky, clouded by self-doubt and fear. While other team members began pitching bold suggestions, Ryan shrank back into his seat, a spectator in his own life. Minutes turned into what felt like hours. The energy in the room was electric, vibrant with creativity, while Ryan felt himself retreating further into a fog of anxiety. He watched Ben, a charismatic colleague with a natural gift for leadership, light up the room with his ideas. It was no surprise. Ben had an effortless charm and charisma that always drew people in. Ben started, gesturing animatedly as he spoke. What if we created a platform that allows our clients to interact with us more dynamically? Every word felt like a dagger to Ryan's confidence. With each passing moment, he felt more like a shadow, hiding in the corners of an otherwise brightly lit room. As the discussions continued, running through various strategies, Ryan stared at the wall, trying to block out the doubts swirling in his mind. Then, surprisingly, the door creaked and Ben stepped away for a moment. The tension hung heavy, silence settling like a fog. Then Michelle turned back to the room and all eyes shifted to Ryan. You seem deep in thought, Ryan. Just like that, Ryan felt like a deer caught in headlights. He fumbled for words that refused to come. But suddenly there was an impulse, a flicker of determination sparked by the reality that he couldn't hide forever. He began hesitantly. But just as he opened his mouth to share his ideas, Ben returned with a coffee cup, completely unaware of the eye on Ryan. You got this, man, he mouthed, glancing back at the restless team. The moment broke something in Ryan. I think we should focus on user experience and the emotional connections we can create, he pushed through, his voice growing steadier. Our clients are looking for more than just a product, they want a community. For a moment his words hung in the air and Ryan nearly felt a wave of vulnerability crash over him, but instead what followed was surprising. Michelle leaned in, intrigued. I like this direction. Ryan felt a sense of release, as if suddenly propelled by a rocket of self-belief. Imagine creating a platform where clients can contribute to the ideation process, a feedback loop where they feel part of our journey. There was a shift, the energy in the room brightened. Other team members leaned forward, nodding, chiming in. Ryan had struck a chord. As he spoke, he could see their eyes open up, interest sparked like fireworks in the sky. Suddenly, what had started as just an idea felt tangible, real, electric. With each word, Ryan felt himself transforming into the version of himself he had always wanted to be. Michelle looked pleased. Her praise was music to Ryan's ears, and a wave of applause broke out. Minutes later, as the meeting wrapped up and the team dispersed, Ryan felt the thrill of accomplishment course through him. The moment he had feared had turned out to be a catalyst for change. He had stepped into his own light, however dimly lit it had been before. In the break room, Ben approached him, a proud smile plastered on his face. You were awesome, Ryan. Thanks, man. I can't believe I almost missed that chance. That's the beauty of taking risks, Ben said. Amidst their conversation, Ryan thought back to that morning, the awkwardness of asking for a towel, the unexpected crescendo behind it. How could something so small lead to something so grand? The weeks rolled on, and as Ryan embraced his newfound confidence, he became more vocal, more engaged. He took the initiative to collaborate with colleagues, inviting them into brainstorming sessions and taking agency over projects. Before long, people began to notice changes, not just in him, but in the whole team dynamic. The board meetings transformed from simple reports to lively discussions, each person contributing to the collective vision. They became a team that thrived on ideas, a community working toward a common goal. One day, Ryan found himself leading a meeting, standing at the forefront, confidently sharing ideas that once sat in the recesses of his mind. He glanced around the room and found Ben nodding, an encouraging smile on his face. I want to hear your thoughts, Ryan encouraged, inviting input from every corner of the room. The conversations flowed. One employee proposed an innovative marketing strategy, while another shared their vision for client engagement. Each voice echoed through the room, creating an atmosphere charged with collaboration. As the meeting concluded, Ryan felt an overwhelming sense of pride. No longer was he hiding, he was thriving. Memories of that first board meeting came flooding back, the uncertainty, the fear, and the way it all melted away when he finally spoke. Days turned into weeks, and Ryan became a driving force in the company. Projects flourished, ideas blossomed, and the energy in the office buzzed with creativity. Michelle recognized the positive shift during her regular check-ins, often highlighting Ryan's contributions that had spurred the renewed drive inside the team. But there were moments of reflection too. During lunch breaks, he would often spot Jake sharing a laugh or Ben leading a brainstorming session, all from that one tiny moment when he had asked for a towel. The significance of that day began to dawn on Ryan. A towel wasn't just a towel. It was the beginning of a journey, a symbol of vulnerability that led to empowerment. Sometimes, what seems like a trivial moment can hold the weight of unimaginable change. It was during one of these reflections that he realized the urgency in everyday. Clarity often comes disguised in chaos, unexpected by nature. The fear that once encased him had transformed into a powerful reminder to embrace every opportunity. And there he was, standing in the conference room, facing another board meeting, this time not as a hesitant newcomer, but as a confident leader who understood the power of connection. He saw all the faces around him, filled with excitement and enthusiasm, ready to collaborate and innovate. "Let's begin," Ryan smiled, feeling the energy in the room. In that moment, he knew a simple request for a towel had opened the door to a transformative journey, igniting a spark that would continue to fuel his ambition as he led the charge into a brighter future, one idea at a time. He stood there, soaked to the bone in the office break room. Water dripped from his hair as he desperately tried to wipe his face with a flimsy paper towel. Ryan was late, and this wasn't how he imagined starting his day. The gym session had gotten a little too intense, and now he was running on adrenaline and a sprinkle of embarrassment. Jake, his coworker, walked in, perched on the edge of the counter, a slight grin playing on his lips. "Very funny." Ryan replied, half laughing but also half hoping Jake would see the urgency in his situation. Jake laughed, disappearing to fetch him a towel. Ryan couldn't help but smile. Jake's antics always made the office lighter, but today he felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. A board meeting with Michelle, the CEO, was happening soon, one that could change everything for him. She was known for her sharp insights and no-nonsense approach, and Ryan had to be at his best. He toweled off the last remnants of moisture as he thought about what lay ahead. The hours spent preparing, strategizing, and rehearsing his pitch seemed utterly flawed when he stood there, feeling like a drenched rat. Once he was dressed, he hurried back to his desk. The buzzing atmosphere in the office matched his racing heart. People gathered in small groups, exchanging whispers about the upcoming meeting, and Ryan could feel the tension rising like steam in a kettle. Then the clock struck 9, and every head in the room turned to Michelle as she walked in. With an air of authority, she commanded attention, her tailored suit making a statement that said she meant business. "Good morning, everyone," she started, her voice crisp and clear. "Today will be different. I want to talk about growth and innovation." Ryan's stomach twisted. This was it, the moment he'd been waiting for, and yet he felt like he could barely breathe. What if he said something stupid? What if they laughed at him? He barely registered the conversations swirling around him. As team members began to present their ideas, Ryan remained glued to his seat, each passing minute eroding his confidence. He felt like everyone else shone while he was caught in shadow. Each time he opened his mouth, a lump formed in his throat. Then, like a cannonball crashing through silence, Ben walked in. He was Ryan's colleague, but also a sort of office rock star, always charismatic, always certain. People already respected him for his boldness and creative thoughts, and as he strode into the room, Ryan felt that familiar spike of anxiety. Ben said, adjusting his sleeves, a confident smile on his face. The energy in the room ignited like dry grass catching fire. Ryan swallowed hard, the spotlight shifting even further away from him. He felt invisible as Ben spoke, capturing everyone's attention with ease, his words flowing like a river. Ryan's heart sank as he watched Ben share his vision for a new marketing strategy. The room responded with enthusiasm. Ideas bounced back and forth, and Ryan felt himself sinking deeper into a state of hopelessness. Why couldn't he do that? Why couldn't he step up? Minutes passed like hours, and finally, when Michelle turned to him, he felt a surge of heat rise in his cheeks. What could he possibly say? All he felt was fear. He forced himself to open his mouth, but the words escaped him. Nerves wrapped around his throat like a vice. Just as he was about to give up, the door creaked, and Jake entered again, coffee in hand, interrupting Malcolm's train of thought. Ryan caught Ben's eye, and suddenly it clicked. A moment of clarity surged through him. He took a deep breath, the adrenaline racing through his veins. "Actually, I think we should focus on emotional connections with our audience." The words broke free as if they were waiting to burst out. For a second, silence hung in the air like a thick fog. Then the room seemed to come alive with energy, heads nodding in agreement. Michelle leaned forward. "I like this direction." With every word he spoke, Ryan felt a ripple of courage wash over him. "We could create a feedback loop where clients have a say in our design process, making them feel like collaborators." As his voice grew stronger, he saw a spark ignite in his colleague's eyes. The more he spoke, the more alive he felt. It was like lifting a weight he didn't even realize was on his shoulders. The room buzzed with conversation following Ryan's pitch. It was no longer just him, it became a group effort. Ideas flowed freely, each person building on the next suggestion, the energy morphing into a beautiful collaboration. At the end of the meeting, as applause erupted, Ryan sat in awe. He had done it. He had opened his mouth and spoken. The thrill coursing through him was electrifying. Michelle smiled, a look of approval in her eyes. "Ryan, great work." He couldn't believe it. Epiphany and validation flooded over him. that feeling of being wanted, needed. It was intoxicating. After the meeting, Ben found him in the break room, his eyes wide with excitement. "You were amazing, thanks. I can't believe I almost missed it." Nerves are normal, man. It's all about releasing them. Ryan thought back to that moment of clarity when he'd finally let go. "I realized that I had something to offer. I wasn't just a spectator, I could contribute." Ben said, nodding. They both chuckled, but Ryan's mind was racing. That moment in the break room, the request for a towel, it sparked something inside him. It was the first step in a journey he didn't know he needed to take. In the days that followed, Ryan became a go-to person in meetings. He gathered colleagues for brainstorming sessions, allowing everyone to contribute their thoughts. He cultivated an atmosphere of open dialogue, reminding them all how valuable their voices were. Each time they met, the dynamics shifted. Employees began to share their ideas with unexpected confidence, building on what Ryan had started. Weeks passed, and soon it was time for another board meeting. This time, Ryan sat in an elevated position at the table, knowing he would lead part of the presentation. The energy in the room was electric, and he felt that familiar mix of excitement and nerves bubbling within him. As Michelle entered, the collective anticipation filled the air. "Today we'll take a deeper look at the feedback Ryan has been developing, as well as your thoughts on fostering community," she said, a nod in Ryan's direction. His heart raced. Everyone looked at him, not with the eyes of doubt, but a sense of trust. He stood up, feeling the weight of their expectations and encouragement. "Thank you all for taking the time today." As he began to outline the ideas he had worked on, Ryan found the rhythm of his voice steady and clear. He had transformed from the guy who didn't feel worth listening to into someone with a voice that resonated with power. Each word flowed out with intention, empowering him as he spoke about building a feedback loop, engaging with customers, and celebrating success together. Afterward, the applause broke through the quiet like only the best kind of fireworks. He had done it not just for himself, but for the team. They were all in this together, pushing the company forward. As the meeting wrapped up, he felt a wave of elation wash over him. That ordinary request for a towel had spiraled into a monumental shift in his life and that of his colleagues. Ben came up to Ryan after, his eyes glimmering with pride. "You've transformed the office." Ryan chuckled, overwhelmed with gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you pushing me." The two shared a laugh, and for Ryan, that small gesture of asking for help had grown into something monumental. That towel hadn't just dried him off, it had opened up a world of possibilities, igniting the fire in him that had always been there, waiting to speak. Days morphed into weeks, and as Ryan continued to lead and innovate alongside Ben and the rest of the team, he found himself genuinely excited about work. The connections he had fostered with his colleagues were deeper, richer, more rewarding. Every meeting transformed from a source of anxiety into opportunities to explore creative solutions. As the boardroom filled with laughter, encouragement, and shared goals, they began to redefine their workplace culture together. Looking back on that fateful day, Ryan understood the significance of vulnerability, the courage encapsulated within that simple request for a towel. It had sparked a journey that brought him into a new light, awakening the leader within. And as he moved forward, he carried that lesson with him. Sometimes all it takes is a single moment, a simple ask to transform everything. He had learned that growth did not come from comfort, but from stepping into the unknown. "Let's keep the momentum flowing," he told the team one day, glancing around the room, excitement surging. With renewed energy, they were ready to embark on a path filled with promise, innovation, and a sense of community. Ryan had found his voice, and in doing so, had lit the path for many others to follow. The ripple effects of that towel request would last long after the moments faded away. Sometimes the smallest moments lead to the biggest changes, and in Ryan's case, a towel became a symbol of transformation and empowerment. But in the break room, soaked to the skin, his shirt clinging uncomfortably to his body, Ryan had just come from an intense workout at the gym, something he'd only fit in because today was the big day, a board meeting with the CEO, Michelle. As he wiped his face with a crumpled paper towel, he glanced in the mirror, feeling a swirl of anxiety rise in his chest. Jake, a coworker known for his playful humor, walked in with a grin. "Yeah, actually," Ryan replied, half joking, half desperate. He needed to present himself better than this, it was too important. "Sure," Jake laughed, disappearing down the hallway. Ryan chuckled but felt a pang of anxiety. All he could think about was the ticking clock. Today he was not just any employee, this meeting was his chance to shine, the kind of opportunity that could change everything. Once Jake returned with the towel, Ryan quickly dried off and dressed in his best shirt and tie. The office was buzzing as everyone settled into their roles, whispers of excitement and anxiety dancing in the air. He could feel the pressure mounting. Then came the moment everything shifted. The boardroom door swung open and in walked Michelle. It was like the room had transformed, the air felt charged with electricity. She exuded authority and everyone's chatter hushed. With her sharp business suit and piercing gaze, she was a force to be reckoned with. "Good morning, team," she began, her voice steady but powerful. "Today is not about numbers. I want to hear your ideas on innovation. I want to know what's next for us." Panic gripped Ryan. He had spent weeks preparing, rehearsing his thoughts in front of the mirror, but as he gazed at the confident faces around him, his resolve crumbled. What if he said something stupid? What if no one cared? Every moment felt heavy, almost suffocating. As the meeting progressed, the atmosphere shifted. Colleagues shared bold ideas, painting vivid pictures of potential projects, while Ryan sat in his chair, frozen. He watched Ben, another colleague, effortlessly commanding the room with his charisma and confidence. Ben had always been the one who spoke up, the one whose ideas flowed like water. Ben pitched, excitement radiating from him. The room erupted with applause, approval showering him like rain. Ryan couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy. Why couldn't he express himself like that? As the discussions continued, a familiar feeling crept back: self-doubt. Shouldn't he be better, braver, bolder? The cycle felt endless until a sudden knock disrupted Ryan's spiral of thoughts. The meeting's energy shifted again, and for a breath, everyone turned to see the door swing open. Ben walked in again. A brilliant idea struck Ryan's mind in the blink of an eye. He thought, hesitating but feeling the moment urge him forward. With a deep breath, he leaned forward. Just as he opened his mouth, another colleague whispered something funny, causing a ripple of laughter. Ryan lost his nerve. The fear felt insurmountable again. The expectation lay heavy on his shoulders as he watched the room continue to engage, while he felt himself retreating once more. The meeting seemed to drone on, and Ryan picked at his tie, drowning in his thoughts, what was holding him back. A few minutes later, Michelle turned to him directly, her expectant gaze slicing through his silence. "Ryan, you've been awfully quiet." He felt his heart race. Staring into her eyes was like looking down a dark tunnel. He could see glimpses of light, but the fear of what lurked there held him back. Just then, the break room door creaked open again, and Jake entered, coffee in hand. Something clicked. Suddenly, Ryan remembered how the small moments could lead to big opportunities. Embarrassment of asking for a towel was insignificant compared to the potential to stand up and share his voice. "I believe we should focus more on emotional connections with our clients." The words spilled out before he could second-guess himself. The room fell silent, all eyes turning toward him. For a moment, Ryan felt the weight of vulnerability, but rather than sinking, he rose to the occasion. With each sentence, he could see people leaning in, interest igniting in their eyes. Michelle nodded, encouraging. "Elaborate on that, Ryan." Ryan couldn't believe it. The floodgates had opened. This could be a community-driven initiative where our customers feel their voices matter. The energy shifted again. It was electric as others began chiming in with their ideas, building on what he had just said. Thoughts clashed and harmonized. Ryan felt a rush of adrenaline flood his veins as people engaged, bouncing ideas back and forth like a game of catch. Minutes felt like seconds, and as they spoke, Ryan glanced out the window, allowing his imagination to run wild with possibilities. He recognized that this collaborative energy marked a turning point. It wasn't just his voice that mattered, it was all of theirs. At the meeting's conclusion, applause erupted. The accumulated energy carried through the air, and Ryan's heart soared. Michelle looked at him, even admiration in her eyes. "Great job, Ryan." He could hardly believe it. Surprise mingled with joy as he absorbed Michelle's praise. The weight of fear he had carried lifted, replaced with a lightness he didn't know was possible. After the meeting, Ben approached him, excitement radiating from his smile. "You were awesome, Ryan. I can't believe I finally spoke up," Ryan admitted, breathing out a sense of exhilaration. The two shared a path of laughter, but as Ryan sank into his thoughts, he realized that every moment had led to this. The request for a towel, the vulnerability, it had turned out to be a decision that opened the door to newfound courage and purpose. Over the following weeks, Ryan shifted gears. He took charge, initiating brainstorming sessions within the team, urging everyone to share their thoughts. He fostered an environment where every voice was valued and people began to blossom. "It's about collaboration," Ryan would say with a smile. As time passed, the office atmosphere transformed. No longer was it a place filled with tension and fear. It became a hub of creativity. Employees engaged freely, a sense of camaraderie filling their interactions. Each meeting turned lively, a tapestry of ideas woven together into something beautiful. Then came the day of another board meeting. This time, Ryan could feel the excitement bubbling inside. As the hour approached, he felt steadier than ever, ready to share what he and his team had developed. He glanced at Ben, who gave him an encouraging nod. Michelle entered, her presence still commanding, but this time it felt different. Ryan was ready. "Today," Michelle began, "we'll dive into the concepts that Ryan and the team have crafted." Everything clicked into place. Ryan felt an almost electric energy surge through him as he stood before the board. "We've created an initiative centered around customer collaboration and loyalty," he began, every word resonating with clarity. He outlined the plan they had developed, how they would create an inclusive platform where client voices would shape their products. The momentum built with every detail he shared. The board leaned in, engrossed, and Ryan could feel their excitement ripple through him. There was a moment of silence as he wrapped up, and then applause erupted once more. Ryan stepped back, soaking in the validation. "Excellent work, Ryan. This is where innovation starts," Michelle said, her approval sending a rush of warmth through him. Walking out of that meeting, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. What had begun with a towel had transformed into a career-defining moment. Ryan understood now, sometimes the smallest gestures lead to the most significant changes. In the coming weeks, he continued to lead projects and initiatives, but it was the journey that resonated most with him. Those moments of vulnerability, asking for help, stepping into the light, were crucial in reclaiming his voice. During team lunches, Ryan often reflected on that extraordinary day. Every now and then he would chuckle, remembering the hilarity of the towel incident, a reminder that small moments could lead to extraordinary transformations. "Can you believe it? A towel changed everything for me," Ryan would say, sparking laughter and camaraderie around the table, a clear sign that they were all in this together. And as he stood, ready to face the next challenge, the realization settled deep within him. He was not just a member of the team. He was a leader, each word he spoke building bridges to new ideas and possibilities. Ultimately, Ryan's journey was a testament to the importance of connection, collaboration, and courage, a reminder that embracing vulnerability can set off a journey of growth. He learned that even the simplest requests can shape destinies, and in that evolution lay the magic of transformation. With every passing day, he thrived, not just for himself, but for everyone around him. A ripple effect of courage stemming from a moment began with a towel. The world felt limitless now, filled with potential, and Ryan knew he was ready to seize it one idea at a time. He stood there, drenched and panting, staring at himself in the break room mirror. Ryan's hair was a chaotic mess, and his shirt clung to his body like a second skin. He had just finished an intense workout, his adrenaline pumping, but this was not how he wanted to start the day. The board meeting with Michelle, the CEO, loomed ahead like a storm cloud. Jake, his colleague and the office jokester, walked in, his eyebrow raised, a smirk spreading across his face. Ryan chuckled nervously. He was half joking, but he meant it. He had to look somewhat presentable today. Jake laughed as he headed off to fetch a towel. Ryan watched the door swing shut, anxiety twisting in his stomach. Today was more than just another Tuesday at Veritas Tech. It was a pivotal moment in his career, a chance to pitch his ideas to a woman whose approval could propel him to new heights. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second feeling like a countdown to Judgment Day. When Jake returned, tossing the towel with flair, Ryan dried himself off quickly and threw on a crisp shirt as he mentally prepared for the meeting. The pressure hung thick in the air, and the murmurs in the office grew louder as they all gathered for the impending discussion. The buzz in the room escalated as Michelle entered. She radiated authority, her sharp suit emphasizing her commanding presence. Everyone settled in, eyes glued to her, anticipation swirling like a whirlpool. "Good morning, everyone. Today is about innovation. I want to hear your ideas on how we can move forward," she stated, her voice slicing through the tension. Ryan's heart pounded in his chest, drowning out all other noise. How could he possibly contribute? He felt like a deer caught in headlights, frozen and terrified. The fear of failure gripped him as he listened to his colleagues present their ideas, bold, confident, and inspiring. Then there was Ben, the office superstar, known for his magnetic energy. He spoke with such fluency, his voice rippling like smooth water. The room lit up with applause, and Ryan shrank deeper into his chair. A wave of envy washed over him. Why couldn't he voice his thoughts like that? Why did fear hold him captive? Minutes turned into what felt like an eternity. Ryan's opportunity felt preordained to slip away, locked behind the iron bars of his self-doubt. Just then, Michelle turned toward him, her eyes penetrating. Panic gripped him. Staring into her expectant gaze felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground turning soft beneath his feet. Nothing came out, not today. The lump in his throat felt insurmountable. As he fumbled for words, he saw Jake entering the room again, bearing a coffee cup. Both of their eyes met for a brief moment, and suddenly, a spark ignited within Ryan. He thought to himself. Summoning every ounce of courage, he finally blurted, "I think we should focus on creating emotional connections with our clients." Silence enveloped the room as the words hung in the air, unexpected yet daring. For a moment, he felt like a candle flickering in the dark. Would anyone even acknowledge him? But then Michelle lined in, intrigued. "That's an interesting perspective." With that, the floodgates opened. Ryan felt his voice grow steadier as he elaborated. "What if we develop a community-driven platform where clients can provide feedback? This gives them a sense of ownership in our products." As he spoke, he began to notice a shift in the room. Heads nodded and eyes sparkled with interest. Each word fueled his confidence. He could feel his earlier fears evaporate, replaced with an exhilarating energy. After Ryan finished, the room erupted into applause, a wave of appreciation washing over him. Ryan couldn't believe it. For a brief moment, he had stepped out of the shadows and into the light. Michelle nodded approvingly. "Great job, Ryan." As the meeting concluded, Ryan found himself in a daze. All the self-doubt that clung to him earlier was gone. He felt exhilarated, a rush of triumph coursing through him. Ben walked over, grinning widely. "Dude, that was phenomenal. Thanks, I can't believe I actually spoke up," Ryan replied, the thrill still making his heart race. "Everyone's nervous. The trick is to use that energy. You're going to be a force in this company if you keep that up," Ben said, his excitement contagious. Days turned into weeks, and Ryan dove headfirst into his newfound role. He began leading collaborative brainstorming sessions, inviting everyone to share ideas. The atmosphere shifted. It became a vibrant tapestry of creativity. The shy Ryan slowly morphed into a confident leader, pushing the boundaries of what they could achieve together. However, with every step he took forward, there were moments of reflection. Ryan would occasionally catch himself standing in the break room, a hint of apprehension creeping back in. What if this was just a phase? What if he slipped back into silence? Yet every time he faltered, the memory of that board meeting carried him through. The applause, the acknowledgement, was a validation of his voice and ideas. It became a mantra, reminding him of the power of vulnerability. One day, while brainstorming with his colleagues, the conversation shifted. One of the team members brought up the concept of user experience, and Ryan felt a wave of inspiration. He leaned in. What if we integrate user feedback right from the start? His colleagues chimed in, building on the idea rapidly, turning it into a robust proposal. The synergy was palpable, a living entity that thrived off collaboration. Every contribution built upon the last, transforming shy thoughts into brilliant concepts. Fast forward to another pivotal board meeting months later, the energy in the room was electric. Michelle stood at the helm, poised and focused on Ryan. Let's showcase the new initiative that Ryan and his team have been developing. Ryan stood again at the forefront, nerves stirring within him like butterflies, but this time it felt different. He had transformed into someone who was no longer afraid. This initiative, he began, addressing the room, represents a shift in how we engage with our clients. It's about participation and collaboration. As he presented, it was as though he had been transported to another realm. Each word felt powerful, resonating with the crowd and enrapturing them. Ryan's earlier fears felt like distant memories, overshadowed by the confidence that had blossomed within him. As he wrapped up, applause broke out once again. Michelle looked pleased. Excellent work, Ryan. Walking out of the meeting room, Ryan felt like he was floating. All the self-doubt had melted away. He was not just an employee anymore. He was a leader, someone who had stepped into his power. But as he headed back to his office, something unexpected occurred. A sudden chill raced down his spine when he caught sight of a group of executives whispering. He did his best to ignore it at first, until one of them, a stern man named Jonathan, locked eyes with him from across the room. His expression changed, becoming tense. Ryan felt a knot form in his stomach. It was as if Jonathan held the weight of every doubt and fear he had ever experienced. Just then he overheard a snippet of their conversation. "Do you think Ryan is ready for a promotion?" As they talked, Ryan's heart raced. What did that mean for him? Was he truly ready for a bigger role? The weight of their judgment felt heavy, looming over him. He felt like a tangled ball of emotions, uncertainty clawing its way back in. Yes, he had found his voice, but could he keep it? Weight of expectation pressed down on his chest, almost suffocating. Then Michelle walked past him, a knowing look on her face. "Let's talk later, Ryan," she said, her tone casual yet commanding. His breath hitched. Had he misstepped? Had his rise been too swift? The warnings in his mind started to echo, undermining everything he had built. As the day rolled on, the dread settled deep in his stomach. What if he wasn't ready for the roles that awaited him? What if all the praise would turn to judgment? What if he was destined to fade back into the shadows? With each tick of the clock, Ryan felt the grip of uncertainty tighten. He started to question everything, the exhilaration of speaking up, the applause in the boardroom, even the trust Michelle showed in him. What if he were more than just an employee? Did he have what it took to be a transformative leader? Could he face the expectations ahead of him? The answers felt like shadows dancing just out of reach. As he sat in the break room later, the weight of all that uncertainty bore down on him. He stared at the cup in his hands, the steam rising like the doubts swirling in his mind. Suddenly, the door swung open and Jake walked in, a smile sparking joy in the air. "Hey, what's up? You've been looking a bit lost," he said, taking a seat beside Ryan. Ryan sighed, the tension bubbling to the surface. "I overheard some executives talking." Jake looked at him, his expression serious. "Ryan, you've already stepped up in ways you didn't think possible. You've proven yourself." But before Ryan could respond, a sense of foreboding washed over him. He realized that he stood at a precipice ready to leap into the unknown but terrified of the fall. As Jake spoke, the distant murmur of the boardroom echoed loudly in his mind, drowning out every positive thought. Ryan knew that he needed to push through. He had turned vulnerability into strength, but facing the unknown would be a different challenge altogether. As the day wound down, he found himself standing by the window, staring out at the city below. The sunset bathed everything in gold, illuminating possibilities. Just when he thought he might steel himself, the door swung open. Michelle stood there, her gaze fixed on him. "Ryan, we need to talk about your future with the company," she said, her tone steady but curious. His heart raced. This was the moment that could change everything for him, either a launch into leadership or a fall back into doubt. He turned to face her, feeling both excitement and fear. He managed to ask, his voice trembling but resolute. Michelle stepped closer, her eyes revealing a depth of understanding. You've impressed a lot of people here, Ryan. Time slowed as he searched for words, aware that whatever he said next would determine his course. Would he embrace the call to leadership or let fear snuff out the flame he had ignited? And just like that, everything boiled down to one pivotal moment. Would Ryan seize the opportunity, or would doubt drown him once again? His heart thundered as thoughts raced through his mind. With his gaze steady, Ryan opened his mouth to answer, but the words hesitated on the edge of a cliffhanger of his own making, teetering between doubt and discovery, ready to unfold into an unknown future.